Medicare Part E, a phrase that was apparently developed some years ago by the Kucinich campaign in 2004 as a suggestion for national health care, and that the Brookings Institution had come up with as well. But as far as I can tell, I was the first guy to say, hey, why don't you drop the public option and start using this phrase? Democrats might be doing it. And we're going to get into that. We're also going to get into, in our second hour, we're going to talk with Suzanne Summers. She's got a new book out. She's been talking with some of the top cancer docs in the country. How do you prevent it, and what are the most innovative treatments for cancer? In our third hour, Dan Gaynor's going to drop by. We're going to be talking about the newspaper problem and whether a solution might be to require local ownership of newspapers. That's going to be my pitch. Dan has some different ideas. But in our first hour, net neutrality, I want to get into this whole issue of the Internet, and throughout the day, of course, we'll be covering a lot of other news as well. But here's, in a nutshell, the issue. If I never use the police department at all, I never have to call them to my house, I never get mugged, whatever, I never need the fire department, I still pay a fixed amount. If somebody else uses the police department a lot, they pay the same amount as me, or they, whatever their taxes are, they pay the same amount. If I take 100 books out of the library a year, or if I take one book out of the library, I pay the same. It's paid for by my taxes. These are considered parts of the common. The newspaper, the library, the fire department, the police department. Now, there's another model, and this is basically how the Internet is run, is regardless of how big you are as a company or a consumer, basically there's, one price for access to the Internet, and the speed by which data flows through it is the same. Another model would be the electric company, for example. The electric company says, okay, you want super industrial electricity, you're going to have to pay more for the wires coming into your house, and by the way, we're going to charge you based on how much you use. So there's these two variables. And the debate right now about net neutrality is whether we're going to go with the police fire library model or whether we're going to go with the water electric model, broadly speaking, I think. I'm on the side of the police fire library, what's called net neutrality, that the companies in the middle can't say, we're going to slow your website down because we made a deal with Disney. They're spiffing us an extra $10 million, and we're going to make their website faster than anybody else's. And I just don't think that's a good idea. I think that the Internet is part of our intellectual commons. John Lott, who has a PhD in economics, the author of several books, including Freedomnomics, Why the Free Market Works and Other Half-Baked Theories Don't, his website, johnrlott.blogspot.com. Dr. John Lott is with us to take the other side. John, welcome to the show.
Oh, good to talk to you.
Good talking with you. What's wrong with treating the Internet as an intellectual commons, particularly now that more and more people are getting their news from the Internet rather than newspapers and even radio and television? What's wrong with treating it as an intellectual commons and dealing with it the same way we deal with fire, police, and library services? That is to say, one basic price, one basic size fits all.
Well,
outside of industrial usage.
Right, sure. Well, one of the big issues with the pricing is that it's like a highway. If I go onto the highway, I'm just taking into account the time it's going to take me to travel. I don't take into account the fact that if it's congested, I may be slowing down all the other cars behind me, that there's a cost to having additional people do it. And one of the big battles that's occurring with this net neutrality is the government wants it so that everybody just pays this basic flat fee. It's not related to the fact that I may be using it a lot. If I'm downloading a lot of movies, if a lot of people are doing that, that slows down the rate that everybody else can go and use the Internet. And so what a lot of the Internet providers would like to do is to charge higher fees to those people who are hogging up a lot of the bandwidth so that they take into account the cost that they're imposing on other users.
But that bandwidth is being paid for, John Lott. While the users, we're all buying into the Internet at the same flat rate, more or less, although there are variations depending on the speed. If you want low-speed Internet access or high-speed Internet access, there are different prices. But that bandwidth is being paid for. I mean, I've got a website. I pay the company that hosts our website and our podcasts and things based in our live streaming and our video streaming, for that matter. We pay based on the amount of stuff that we pump out into the internet. So it's already being paid for. It's being paid for by the providers. Why should why should we allow the companies that, the Comcasts and Verizons and phone companies, Quests of the world, whatever it may be, the companies that are providing the local access into the internet, why should we allow them to double charge?
Well, because, first of all, the users themselves also use bandwidth. If I go and send large files, even though I'm a private individual there, that still adds to the congestion that occurs on the internet. And the producers aren't currently picking up all the costs of even what they do. If I go and download a movie, it makes sense to go and charge them. If somebody's trying to charge twice as much as their cost by charging two different people for the same service, somebody else can come in there and offer it more cheaply.
But there's already a natural limit on that. If you buy 1.5 meg download, 200K upload, which is kind of the basic, more or less DSL service from a phone company, or the basic program from a cable company, that's like, $20 a month or $30 a month, whatever it may be. If you want to go to 12 or 20 megs, download speed and 2 or 3 meg upload speed, that costs $40, $50. I was just pricing this stuff this weekend. There's already that pricing built into the consumer side. And as I said, there's absolute pricing built into the provider side. I think the big issue here with net neutrality is going to be speed. It's going to be that the pipeline companies, the companies that are providing the internet data ultimately to the users, want to be able to intentionally slow down some. And Comcast actually did this. They were identifying users, I believe it was Comcast, might have been Verizon. They were identifying users who were heavy users of peer-to-peer software that were sharing movies and things, and they started slowing down the data going into their computers. And, they stopped as a consequence of negative public opinion. I don't think that should be allowed.
Well, first, if we go back to the Commons example that you had, if you own a bigger house than somebody else, right, you pay more in property taxes. You pay more for fire services and police services than other people are going to. Whether
I use them or not, it's not based on usage. It's based on the potential for usage, and we're already paying for that. If I want 20 meg download speed versus 1 meg download speed, I pay more for that right now. But it doesn't have to do with how much I'm downloading. But speed is the big issue here. Are you suggesting that speed should be something that we should have to pay for too?
Well, first of all, with the fire services, you're always getting those services, whether the guy's always there or not, because he's providing, the option that if a fire occurs, he'll be there. That's a cost that fire department's always having to bear. They just don't bear the cost when you actually have a fire and have to show up. But it's not just the access that you have to the speed on the internet, it's the fact that you slow other people down. They have to go and build more wires, more carrying capacity if more people...
Right, and they do that, and they charge more for the internet service. We've seen the price for internet services go up.
That's what the net neutrality is trying to get rid of. It's trying to make it so that if I go and download a bunch of movies, I'm not going to pay any more than somebody else who's just surfing the internet.
Within certain limits, within the limits of the service that you're paying for. But as I said, I think the speed is the bigger issue. But we apparently haven't had time to discuss that. John Lott, his website, johnrlott, LOTT.blogspot.com. You can read his work over there, the author of Freedomnomics. John, thanks for dropping by today.
Thanks. Good talking to you.
Yeah, good talking with you, too. 15 minutes past the hour. Net neutrality, is it doomed? Are the corporations going to ultimately even take over the web?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Here's the big picture on this whole issue of net neutrality. And this I think really is the big picture. If I have $1 million mansion and I call a fire department, they show up as fast as they show up. If I have a $5,000 shack and I call a fire department, they show up as fast as they show up. The holy grail of blowing up net neutrality, and Glenn Beck was going off on this yesterday, and I don't think he understands the issue. And you've got Americans for Prosperity now trying to shoot down net neutrality. The holy grail for these corporations is having the ability to slow down the internet. Not speed it up, intentionally slow it down. So, for example, if I want to get the news, and I go on and I go to Think Progress, or I go to Common Dreams, or I go to BuzzFlash.com, or I go to OpEdNews.com, or there's a whole variety, Crooks and Liars, Democratic Underground. If I go to one of those websites and they load really, really slow, I mean really slow, a lot of people are not going to wait for it to load. They're not going to wait, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds for a website to load. But if I go to Drudge Report and boom, it loads instantly because Matt Drudge paid my internet service provider an extra $1,000 a month to make sure that his site would load fast because everybody else's is slowed down. That's what the guys who are opposing net neutrality want to have happen. They want the big corporations all across this country to be the ones who can afford to pay for the distribution, for the rapid distribution of what I consider to be part of the intellectual commons of this country, the news. And that rapid distribution of the news is really what it's all about. It should be, as it is right now, that regardless of what website you have, regardless of whether it's being served out of your basement or whether it's being served out of a multi-million-dollar server farm in Dallas, I mean, there will be some small differences because, if you're doing it out of your basement, your personal server may be slow. But assuming that you can get it onto the net at the same speed, then no matter who you are, no matter how big or how small you are as a news source or a commentary source or anything else, no matter how big or small you are, your page is going to load at the same speed. By blowing up net neutrality, the corporatists in this country want to make it so that the phone companies and the internet providers, the cable companies, that they have, by and large, the phone companies and the internet and the cable companies have, by and large, become the brokers, the arbiters, the gatekeepers of the internet. And they want to be able to say, we're going to charge you 16 ways to Sunday. We're going to figure out all kinds of ways to make extra money on this. If you use a lot of the internet, we're going to charge you for more of that. Now, they're already doing that to a large extent. There, as I said earlier, if you want, higher pass-through rates, higher speeds, download or upload, you pay more for that. There's a difference between DSL and cable and T1 and fiber and all these kind of things, and you pay more for more speed and more capacity. But the holy grail of this is, and that's download speed, to your computer, but the holy grail of this is the pass-through speed, the ability to play the role of gatekeepers. And that's why Americans for Prosperity and other corporate-funded or rich guy-funded think tanks are all over net neutrality, and they want to blow up net neutrality, is because they want to make sure that they can control the web, to the same extent that they're trying to pretty much control everything else. I mean, you got the Washington Times out there losing over $1 billion. Reverend Moon's lost over $1 billion to make sure that there's right-wing news everywhere in Washington, D.C. You got Fox News that lost $100 million a year for 5 years before Sean Hannity made his first penny for Fox News. Why? To make sure that everybody out there has access to right-wing news 24/7. There's no left-wing equivalent in television. There's no 24/7 left-wing commercial network. Now, there is a 24/7, progressive, I think you could say, free speech TV, but it's only available on Dish Network. And it's not ubiquitous like everything else. So the conservatives want to maintain that lock that they have on the media. They want to extend that to the internet. And right now what they're seeing is that progressive websites on the media are actually outperforming conservative websites. If you look at Alexa, if you look at the stats, what you find is that the by and large, the progressive websites, the Huffington Posts of the world, the Op-Ed Newses of the world, the Common Dreams of the world, the Buzz Flashes of the world, that the Democratic Underground of the world, and on it goes. I mean, there's a lot of great sites out there, the TPMs of the world, that they are actually outperforming virtually all of the conservative websites. So the conservatives, they've got the cash. Right? They got the big corporations behind them. They got the rich guys behind them. They want to be able to, they want the internet service providers to basically slow down everything on the web. So any web page you go to is going to take 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds to load, except for the ones that pay an extra fee. because they've got the money. They can pay the extra fee, and this way they can make sure that if you want conservative news, bang, it's going to load just like that. If you want right-wing websites, bang, they're going to load just like that. It's the same thing that they do with books. If you're a right-wing author, you are guaranteed that you're going to be on the New York Times bestseller list. Even if only a few thousand actual people buy your book, you know, one of the foundations run by Richard Mellon Scaife or one of the front groups for the right wing, they'll go out and they'll buy 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 copies of the book right out of the gate in order to get that book onto the New York Times bestseller list so that it looks like it's doing well, so that it'll create its own momentum. They want to do the same thing on the web. Up next, a conservative alert. Is there really a Republican terrorist out there hunting liberals and tree-hugging Democrats? Isn't he allowed to just have a good time? Yeah, right. Plus, we'll be taking your calls at 866-987-TOM. Stick around.